Drew Davison. Drew, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, no, thanks for coming on, and no shortage of news with TCU, and we're going to get into that. But I got to start with this. I'm going to ask all my guests this: have you been watching The Last Dance?
Oh, of course. Yeah,
Okay,
I grew up like a lot of people, I guess, right in the Jordan heyday. So, definitely intrigued by by that documentary and everything that happened.
oh yeah, man. I mean, I can't get enough of it. I'm sad it's over, but I've got to ask. I mean, I've been in this business a long time. I mean, I've been a television reporter. I've been a writer, radio talk, sideline reporter on the Cowboy Network. I've done a lot of things. I've written a couple of books,
Right.
but I've got to. I mean, I've got to ask all my guests today. Last night, when Jordan in episode 9 said it wasn't the flu, it was a bad pizza and food poisoning. Did you know that before last night, or am I the only one that was a revelation for?
Oh no, that was definitely a revelation to me, and I feel somewhat. I also didn't know Steve Kerr's backstory with his father. So I mean, I definitely learned a lot. But yeah, the flu game, everyone just assumed it was the flu, not food poisoning. So, but it was definitely suspicious, and you kind of question why he eat the pizza, given all the circumstances of how many people were there to quote unquote deliver it.
No kidding. I mean, now the first thing you think is, well, they knew it was for Michael Jordan that many guys showed up because they wanted to see if they could see Jordan. But then you think about how rabid the Utah crowds were, and they were one of the few places that didn't care about seeing superstars. They just wanted their team to win. They're pretty rabid.
Mhm.
So it doesn't surprise me that if you're going to get food poison, it's the Mormons in Utah that got him. Come
Exactly. So,
on. Uh,
it could just be one rogue restaurant, but who knows?
well, and here's the other thing. I don't know if you've ever had food poisoning. I've had it one time in my life, and it's a big jump from the flu. I mean, I got food poisoning from a Chinese restaurant. Not going to name names. Don't want to get into logistics, but it was violent, and yeah, it was a lot worse than what you. And when they described what happened to him that morning when he woke up, and I'm like, okay, yeah, he's right. So it makes what he did to me in the game against the Jazz even more impressive.
Oh yeah, yeah, no question. And obviously that game to me, is one of his defining moments, or one of the most talked about games. Even when you look back on Jordan's legacy.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Drew Davison with us from the Fort Worth Star Telegram. All right, let's get into this. I've been told, I know they meet every day, basically, or they meet several times a week, but I've been told the presidents in the Big 12 are meeting today and that there's a chance, and I know the SEC scheduled to vote on this on Thursday. There's a chance the Big 12 presidents vote today on what to do with the ban on team activities and whether students can be together on campus, which, May 31st is where that is right now. But the presidents may address that today. Have you heard anything along those lines?
Yeah, no, I have heard that they've got to make a decision, obviously here in 2 weeks. But number one, just from a TCU perspective, I know the head coaches are scheduled to have a meeting. I don't know if they use Zoom or Google Hangouts or whatnot, but they're scheduled. All the head coaches are scheduled to have a virtual meeting tomorrow, which I believe will go over whatever's decided or talked about today. I guess they don't necessarily have to make a decision, but I will say, here in Texas, all the gyms are now open, of course, in limited capacity, and I believe all 5 states where Big 12 schools are: Oklahoma, obviously where you guys are at, Kansas, West Virginia, I believe, and Iowa. I believe all the states now are allowing gyms to operate at a limited capacity. So you would think, hey, if guys can work out in small groups, so to speak, it's not far fetched for that to happen at some point.
Well, and as things line up, I've had a chance to talk to Mike Gundy a couple of times, and I think he and Gary Patterson are kind of partners in the way they kind of see things. But the three schools I hear um, most pro bringing people back and doing it maybe as soon as June 1 are West Virginia, Oklahoma State, and TCU. And I think we know from Lincoln Riley's comments which school is most adamant about not having their athletes back right now, and that'd be the University of Oklahoma. Your thoughts on that, the way that lays out?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I think Lincoln Riley has a solid point that, hey, why rush it back and jeopardize maybe a flare up when does it have to be June 1st? Why not June 15th, or why not even July 1st? I think July 1st, I would still give teams 2 months to get ready for the season. And from what I was told, just from talking to the A&M AD, and obviously I know that's SEC, as well as some TCU folks, they're thinking 45 to 60 days would be enough to go through a strength and conditioning program as well as a training camp in terms of getting guys ready, assuming they've been, kind of staying on top of it from home. But July 1st, that would give most teams that 60 days, even a little more than 60 days. So to me, I think it makes sense not to rush it back, but at the same time, if the states are allowing people to work out, I understand why some of these coaches would want to get them back sooner, especially if they're going to have to stagger workouts, to 5 to 10 guys at a time. Just doing that, implementing that, it could take the strength and conditioning program could take longer if it can't be 100% capacity.
Again, Drew Davison with us, and Drew, the frogs must have been sympathetic. It's like, hey, we know our media guys are kind of scratching for things to write about, so we're going to pick up a 5-star top running back in the country in recruiting, this week, and then we're going to get a call from Alabama, at least reportedly get a call from Alabama in case the Pac-12 is still in lockdown on opening weekend. Maybe the frogs can come over to Jerry's World and play Nick Saban in Alabama. So you were given two really nice scenarios to write about last week.
Oh yeah, and that I just need another 5-star to sign this week, and maybe a rumored game against Michigan or Ohio State again. But no, yeah, they've helped us out. But the kid they signed out of the Houston area, the running back Zach Evans, 5-star recruit. He's a big time talent, and he's a guy who could come in, start right away, play significant minutes, and like any 5-star, he looks like a man among boys on his highlight reel. So that was good. And then of course the A&M or the Alabama game. That's an intriguing matchup if it does happen. And I know there's probably never a quote unquote great time to face Alabama, but with them breaking in a new quarterback and whatnot this upcoming season, maybe this is if there was a quote unquote year to face them, maybe this is the most favorable year, as well as just given the state of the economy. I'm sure TCU would gladly welcome the paycheck. I'm sure that comes along with that.
Yeah, no doubt. I can tell you, Zach Evans, early in his recruitment, when he was a sophomore into his junior year, he came to Oklahoma State 2 springs in a row, and had Oklahoma State on his list as late as last summer. Or last spring. I remember I was in Katy for the opening regional and interviewed him and talked to him down there. But um, I know there were a lot of things that went wrong for him during his senior year. Got into it with one of his coaches, but my my personal interaction with this kid is he's a sharp kid. He speaks well. He wasn't standoffish like some kids can get if they start thinking they're a superstar before they really are.
Mm-hmm.
Stars in recruiting can really poison a kid, but this, at least my interaction stopped after his junior year. I really didn't talk to him much after that, but um, if he comes in ready, you're right. He can be an instant. and my man Doug Meacham's back down there. I bet Doug is kind of excited to have him in the mix a little bit.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, and I think obviously, you know, Doug's going to love using him. TCU, they've got some questions at offensive line. They lost their top three tackles to graduation this last offseason, but certainly Zach Evans looks like a kid that you design play whatever number he's wearing. You design plays, a set number of plays for number X, whatever Evans opts to wear at TCU, and go from there. And I'm sure, with Doug Meacham, Sonny Cumbie back, when they were together in 2014, 2015, that's really when TCU had some real prolific offenses. Of course, the Peach Bowl year. So they're definitely getting some pieces built around and bringing in some highly touted guys. And outside of Evans, they were able to land a couple real nice wide receivers, Quint Johnson and original Texas commit coming in town, and then they got another kid out of East Texas who's a high prospect. But those guys are going to have to step in pretty quick to given that Jalen Rager's no longer with the program.
Yeah, and bringing up Rager, I was going to ask you about the NFL draft. Obviously, TCU was in a kind of in a starring role with as many players as they had drafted, and Rager went early, and Gladney went early. But the question that was begged, during the NFL draft, what was going on, and we were hearing TCU guys' names called. Wow, how did the Frogs miss a bowl game last year when they when they're killing it in the NFL draft? And I've read some of the comments from Gary Patterson. In fact, right after the season ended, he said he was going back to the drawing board. This wouldn't happen again. Um, I'm guessing all the players picked in the NFL draft served just as a reminder that we got to get our stuff together here.
No question. And Gary's made it crystal clear that they've got to be better. They've got to learn how to finish games. Not to make excuses, but the big two of the big reasons for their struggles last year. Number one, Max Duggan. He's a promising quarterback. I think he's got a bright future ahead, but obviously he went through the growing pains you'd expect from a rookie quarterback. And then secondly, TCU went 1-6 in one-score games. If they're able to flip even half of those, in eight-win season with a true freshman quarterback doesn't look as bad. So it wasn't like they were just getting blown out at each week. Of course, Iowa State handed it to them pretty good, but the 1-6 record in one-score games that's got to change. That's got to flip. And like I always tell people too, that there's a reason Joe Burrow went number one. Quarterback play is pretty important, regardless of level.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And TCU's got some other options. I agree with you. I saw Max in a camp the summer before his senior year in Stillwater, and I know that the offensive coordinator at the time, Mike Yursich, loved him. And Oklahoma State ended up with a good quarterback in Shane Illingworth in this last class, and then they had Spencer Sanders, so that probably precluded being able to get Max. But uh, a lot of people here pretty high on Max, so I think he'll do pretty well. Last thing with Drew, you're an observer of the Big 12 conference. I think we all have to kind of just float that preseason number one in the Big 12 every year to Oklahoma until somebody else takes it away from them. But when you look at the Big 12 this year, what intrigues you? If we get to play, by the way.
Right. Yeah. That's the big if. But no, Robert. Not to pump up your fan base too much, but I do think Oklahoma State. You got to look at them with everything they got coming back, especially Hubbard and obviously Sanders. Having another year of experience. I really think Oklahoma State, is a dangerous team. And with that being said, I also kind of look down at Texas and feel like, hey, they could be getting close because I think Baylor will take a step back. OU obviously always reloads, and I know they've got a promising quarterback, but they don't have they certainly, we'll see if they can get another guy in the Heisman conversation. But I do think Oklahoma State, just when you look at what they have coming back and what they were able to do last year, I think they could, be right there at the top. And like I said, quarterback play is so important, and I think Sanders is one of the top guys, or looks like he's progressing towards that.
Yeah, and Chuba's trying to get ads across the conference to all center their video boards. He's kind of like he used that video board against K State last year in Stillwater, and then that TCU game. It's funny to look back on the still pictures on the field of him running toward that east end, and you can see his eyes are looking up at the board because he's looking where the defenders are. He's become a master at playing combination video game live football. So
Right.
it's kind of
Well,
funny.
he had the huge game against TCU. I just remember, once he got the edge, he was gone for, I think, a 90-plus yard touchdown run, and then had another long
Yeah.
one. So yeah, I mean, he was I believe the first running back to run for over 200 yards against the Gary Patterson defense. So clearly, he could have been playing on Sundays probably this season, but of course, I'm sure Oklahoma State's happy to have him back.
Yeah, and it's also I guarantee I've been around Gary Patterson, not as much as you, but I've been around him long enough to know that he'll have that game circled, and his defense will have Chuba's name circled. Because Gary Patterson's got too much pride to let a running back go for 200 twice on him. So yeah, Chuba will be a wanted man when he gets down to Fort Worth, no doubt about it. So
yeah, that's one game I'm definitely looking forward to.
yeah,
Knock on wood, that happens this fall.
yeah. In fact, if for some crazy reason the Big 12, like some leagues are talking about, adopts a conference only schedule, it may not be that way for TCU, but for Oklahoma State, that is the conference opener out on the road at Fort Worth.
Yeah, I believe that's TCU's opener as well. I could
So
be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that would be their first Big 12 game.
yeah, that could be freaky. Hey, Drew, I appreciate the time. Stay well, and I'm not going to say I'll see you at Big 12 Media Days unless it's on the virtual platform.
Right. I might see. We might see each other's headshot on a computer screen. So
There you go. Hey, Drew, I appreciate it.
all right. Thank you.
All right, Drew Davison from the Fort Worth Star Telegram.